Hello and welcome to the Slapshot Syndicate podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more content, and whilst you're at it, go and follow our social media pages. They're on screen now. Now, on to the episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Slapshot Syndicate. So boys, let's just get straight into it, shall we? An interesting weekend.
Yeah, very interesting.
The playoffs are hotting up nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of these results that are coming out are massive in both groups as well, to be honest, not just looking at the Seahawks. Still all to play for?
Still all to play for, which is exactly how we wanted it going into the final weekend.
Yeah, really firing it. I think you don't really know where to look. I think every little tie gives something another talking point, so yeah, can't wait to get into this one, lads.
Yeah. With that said, let's get into Seahawks reaction. So now we're going to look at the Seahawks weekend performance. Probably the hardest weekend of our playoff.
Hardest one to watch, I think, to be honest. But yeah, no, definitely the hardest. Obviously the double against Leeds Knights. We looked at this, obviously as part of our prediction, and sort of said, I think we thought, okay, we're probably not going to take anything from these. We need to take the points from Telford and Peterborough. Yeah. But, you know, anything from these games was going to be a bit of a bonus.
Yeah.
Bringing us into Saturday.
Yeah, so Saturday
Absolutely.
At the Castle, you know, our away form not being the best all season, but we've had, you know, some alright games against Leeds, and like you say, I don't think we expected anything from this. You know, deep down I was like, if we could take a point, I'd be more than happy. Yeah. You know, against Leeds here, and well, we did.
I think
we did get the point and more.
Yeah,
coming away with the 2 points, 7-6 overtime win.
I think
the Castle.
The fact that when we come on each week, we often say, "Oh, you watch this one, didn't you? Oh, you watch this." Like the fact that every single one of us tuned in, and you know, like X amount of Seahawks fans did as well. You know, it showed the level, that the importance of the game, and we were very much treated, weren't we? It was the wildest game probably I've watched all season, and it weren't made easy in the first minute, was it, lads?
Yeah, certainly wasn't made easy for us by Bissonnette, was it? I mean, he had quite a performance on Saturday night for the Knights, and I don't know, we had a little secret weapon of our own in Sobchak, coming up trumps again, but you know, we went into that first period tight, relatively tight, come out in the second.
I think it was just worth noting that first goal from Leeds within a minute was just one of those weird sort of goals where it was just like, it wasn't a real confidence.
No, that's what I was getting at. You know, it was a dump more than anything.
Yeah, so for those that didn't watch the game, Bissonnette kind of carries the puck over the blue line, half looks up at Deemer and just thinks, I'm going to dump this at him and get off and swap. Well, he does that. The rest of the line had gone, but then he sort of half looks back to see if he does dump it all right, and it's gone straight over the shoulder of Deemer in the top corner, and you're just like, that's not the start we needed or wanted, but you know, 46 seconds in and Bissonnette's got that. Like you said, the confidence must have been a bit like, oh, hang on a minute, lads, are we up for this?
I'm not going to lie, when that went in, it was like a lung blow. You're like, oh no.
You know, like, I think we're the starters. We need to go on here.
I think going to the Castle is always a free hit, isn't it? You don't go there expecting to bounce Leeds about and things like that. But yeah, the fact that they came out like that and the nature of the goal as well, you was like, oh, for God's sake. However, the reaction actually for the remainder of the first period was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, like you know, like you say, that first goal goes in and you start thinking of all the cliches, don't you? Like, just keep it tight for the first five, build,
0-0 lads.
Yeah, don't do anything stupid, and then the first sort of dump on the goal and you're behind. It's a bit like, oh no. But like you say, we did come strong and we did sign it on a bit as the period went on. You know, it took the first sort of 10 minutes and then the second 10 minutes of the first period, bang, we was bang at it. And, you know, once again, that power play coming in clutch for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then shortly after that, up steps the man, Sobchak, puts another one in. And then quickly after that, Johnny Corneal steps up, puts one in again. And very quickly, we ended up 3-1 up.
I just want to note that Johnny Corneal goal, because that was something as well, wasn't it? So I can't remember who had the initial shot, it flew over the top of Gospel's goal, hit the back wall, and then it was an instant swing, and then like it sort of hit Gospel in the back, and he's sort of fallen into the back of his net, and it caused a bit of a what's going on? Yeah, and it was a great finish, and like you say, those are the sort of goals you need in those big games like that.
I feel like that line, we almost say like second line like naturally now. However, they're sort of, I don't want to say stepping up to be the first line, but whenever you look at the stats or the team sheets and stuff, the first line is almost showing as Hewitt, Bonner and Corneal now, and you know, we've got Sobchak and Svek and all those massive players for us, but that line in particular, I think they're coming in so important for us at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Johnny's really taking on a role now, and that rolled into obviously the Sunday night where he stepped up to first line with Svek and Sobchak, but yeah, that first period Johnny was fantastic, wasn't he?
Yeah, so we go into the end of the first period, 3-1 up, come out, think, all right, now's the time to, you know, keep it going, keep the momentum going, but you know, make sure you're tight at the back, you know, you don't let away any silly mistakes. As luck would have it, obviously that's when Leeds Knights came out.
It was a weird period. I think we started on a penalty kill on that period as well.
We killed. Yeah, it was weird because even in the first period, like we were killing penalties really well. Their commentator was really complimentary, which I'm a big fan of. You know, I don't really like it when commentators are really biased, but like we spoke about the Bees earlier in the season as well, didn't we? It was commentator's fantastic, but this commentator was great, and he was really complimentary of the Seahawks on the penalty kill, and you know, obviously on the power play as well, which we got our first goal from. But yeah, we did start on the penalty kill. I'm sure. I think we maybe had like a minute or a minute and a half or something.
That should have been the catalyst to kind of go on for the rest of the period, but like you say, it sort of fell on its face a little bit. Really weird sort of period. Like Seahawks suddenly couldn't get an attack going.
Yeah.
I think there was a couple attempts in a row where we sort of got to the blue line, dumped it and changed, and it was just kind of like, wow, we no longer have that sort of press and possession at their end, and it was really weird. And like I say, if it had been 0-0, I think you'd have been happy with it.
Yeah.
I think both teams would have thought, wow, this is quite a bad period of hockey, but the fact that they've come away with 3.
For a team that's 3-1 up, you expect them to sort of like grab the game by the scruff of the neck, but it went, was it? It was almost like it was like a right 0-0, and they played to that, didn't they? Where it was like,
I know, like you can imagine in that first break, you know, Ryan Aldridge is going to be like, yeah lads, it's an home game, we're 3-1 down, let's get ourselves into this game. But like I said, they didn't come out with any sort of like real let's get at these, and it was a real weird period, and you just thought with us 3-1 up, there was a chance there just to go on a bit more and just put the game to bed early, but yeah, really disappointing second period. They won that period 3-0.
Yeah, and we came in with 4-1 to Leeds at the end of that period.
What, 4-3, wasn't it?
4-3, sorry, 4-3. One goal ahead. So made it all to play for, but give us a bit of a mountain to climb at the start of the period. Luckily, you know, we come in, got a goal relatively early.
On the power play again.
Yeah, Sobchak putting one in from the power play, levelling the game up. So at this point, it's anyone's who wants it more, essentially.
And it became a real back and forth, didn't it? There was attacks going, goals either side.
I almost wanted to say it was like I think scrappy is a disrespectful word, but it was scrappy. Like we were getting goals where like ping, and like, you know, just that one last clutch. But I also want to say it was the hard work and the grind.
I think it was just because the speed of the transitions made it look a bit scrappy. Like nobody could hold on to the puck, but I think it was just good overall play with a bit of decent defence in there. It was just it was great really to watch.
And it made for such a, you know, an exciting period of hockey. One that actually, insert the clip here. That was the sound of Aaron's reaction to one of the goals that he sent to me and Brad in the Slapshot Syndicate Facebook inbox, which I was a massive fan of.
Yeah, so like we'll talk about towards the end of the game then. So obviously, what was it, 56-53? Matt Barron scores, and what was the go-ahead goal for Leeds? Real lot on, and you just think we've let this go here.
Yeah.
You know, a real sucker punch. You know, watching it, I know we was talking as the game was happening. You just thought, if we can just get to overtime and get a point, it's the least we deserve from this. And then you think, just one more chance.
Please. Yeah.
And then, you know, the sort of last minute comes around, and then Dima goes off, and you're like, okay, we've got an empty net, and
Well,
you know,
it went back and forth, didn't it? So obviously, you got Howlett scored that goal at 46 minutes in, and then Hewitt gets one back at 53 minutes in, and then Barron gets one at 56 minutes in, and on the power play, and you're like, oh my god, someone needs to get hold of this game now. Then we get Sobchak scoring in the 59, couple of seconds towards the end.
10-15 seconds
10-15
left.
seconds left.
13 seconds left on the stars.
Absolutely,
absolutely massive. But I wonder what the conversation was from the Leeds Knights coach. Like, I don't even remember what actually happened. So they'd finally won the puck in their own end, Leeds, and instead of just sort of dumping it down the ice and settling the play, they went for the goal, didn't they? And as doing it, I think it hit Det Barner on the leg, and he stopped it in the zone, and all of a sudden, bang, bang,
levered, bang,
back of the net, 13 seconds, and you're just like, oh no, what have you done
just
there?
Get rid of it,
and I bet he was steaming after seeing that. Like you say, that even if you just get it up in the air and loop it, just get it out of the way, and he's put it straight into someone's leg. And
with that amount of time left as well, you've got the 2 or 3 seconds it takes to skate back. Everyone's set.
Yeah.
For a team that's won the league and the cup, I bet he was fuming.
A bit of a soft moment that from them, wasn't it, really? But we weren't complaining, 'cause obviously it led to us getting the scores level 6-6 and then pushing into overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you two think of the overtime period?
Overtime was a bit of an odd one, really. It was end-to-end stuff, and like you could see there was battling it out, but I didn't feel as nervous as I should have felt. Like we was more on top of it.
I thought we was the better side going into overtime, and I remember you say about the commentary for the game. The Leeds commentary was sort of like, what's Hull Seahawks doing here? Because I know there's a few times where Det got it, and instead of just darting in, he came back instead, and I was like, do you know what? We'll reset this. And he was a bit like, what they're doing. He hasn't gone in.
Det Barner brings it back again. Yeah, he was almost like, we're going to dictate how fast this goes and stuff like that. Because Leeds were just sort of sitting back in their period, just like, we're gonna counter you when we get this puck, and they weren't allowing it, was there?
Yeah.
They were just like, no, we're gonna have the puck.
We'll set this up.
We're gonna do our little routines, and then we're gonna.
We've mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember. I want to say Swindon. But we played somebody, and it was one of the worst overtime periods I've ever seen, like a whole team play. And then we won one a week or so after, where we won it in overtime. And we said then, like, we seem to have just got our minds a bit more on these overtimes and what we can do with it. And again, we came up clutch. I mean,
I thought we were brilliant.
But it was what a person to get that overtime.
I mean, even the pass to Huey, and he sort of just waited, and he just sort of got checked as he released it into the path of Burns. And like you say, just absolute magic, wasn't it?
Amazing, wasn't it? Such a good feeling when we got that 2 points. It was a real boost, wasn't it? We was like, there was that belief where it was like, here we go, like we can see commentary in sight now.
Well, like, unfortunately, me and you were still on dial-up internet, so he was a few seconds ahead.
we were.
He was already celebrating, and we was like, "Oh, we're going to score!" And then he's like, "Are you two lads seen it?" And then eventually we caught up, and
I was sat there on the chat going like, "Oh, I need to say something," waiting for him to come out, and eventually they did, and I was like, "Yeah!"
You said everyone was at Seahawks on Sunday, weren't you? You was just like, "Just put some, please."
Well, I think I put a message on, didn't I? Like, how many seconds are you guys on? Like
I think it was earlier in the game, you saw that we'd scored, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then I was like, have we? And then all of a sudden we scored, and I was like, oh yeah, Brad, you killed me, And then it was kind of like at that point, which I'm glad in the end we mentioned it, because if you'd have been like, lads, we've won it, and I'd have been gutted if I didn't have that moment of seeing it.
100%.
So yeah, that finished up Saturday. Big win on the road,
Huge.
Overtime win. Both teams scoring 1 point. We took the extra one for the 2, which is massive. And then it came back to the home game. Home ice Sunday, and I think I'd talked to a few other people, and again I wasn't confident with this. After watching Ryan Aldridge's interview post game, he was steaming. I'll tell you now, but I did laugh emoji on your little social media post because it tickled me. I love seeing the head gone, because that piqued me. That being a sore loser, head gone, seeing somebody else's head go from
victories where you can.
Go on. But yeah, he wasn't happy, and I said to a few people, like, I just can't see him letting his lead side come to Hull and not give anything. No way was it going to happen, and it sort of played out that way. Both teams went at it straight from the off again, didn't they?
More to that point as well, as before we do get into this, if Leeds had have lost this game, Peterborough and Hull would have been first and second, Leeds would have been third, so they needed something out of this game.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
But kept coming into the game, started off relatively stable, wasn't it? It was a bit of a game of chicken, really. I was gonna put one away first, and it was only in the 13th minute. John Moesa puts one away in the power play goal.
I just want to mention this because I was really annoyed about this, and I'm not usually one that says, the referee this, referee that. Like, I'll swallow it, I'm fine. And it might be because I've got a bit of favour towards this player, but if you both remember, Alex Kent got binned, didn't he? Do you remember? And it was literally I think he did a poke check to get the puck, and they called it a slashing.
Yeah.
And it was everyone in the stands were like, what? Yeah. And the referees went up to each other and were sort of doing this, and I think they were almost like, oh, we've messed up here, like this, because Kent's like,
are you joking?
Me, and then they go and score on that, and that was really frustrating.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, I believe we then drew it up, didn't we? 1-1.
It was less than 2 minutes afterwards, yeah.
And then the next one, correct me if I'm wrong, it was either Hodge or Hayward. I believe it was Hayward who got called for.
I know what you're going to
say. For hooking. The puck's been played towards our crease. Hayward's played the puck, and their player's in front. Rather than smashing into the player, he's almost just sort of like...
They're doing like a dance at it together. They've sort of gone like, together round. And he's called holding.
The Leeds player wasn't going for the puck. He's played it sideways. So Hayward's almost like skating at force with the player and just sort of grabs him as if to, move on the way.
They're both out of the play at that point.
They're not involved in this play. Yeah. And then we get another penalty for holding. Yeah. And again, the full crowd are going mad out there. You can see Matty's face on the sideline. He's going red. And rightfully so. And again, they go and score. And
their first 3 goals were power play goals.
I was really frustrated about... I mean, the third one, there's a little bit more to that. That's fine. But I made a note. When they both happened, I thought, no, I'm going to mention that tomorrow because that really frustrated... Obviously, I'm a Seahawks fan and I wanted us to win. But those were 2 really poor calls in my opinion.
The thing is like, they're not just poor calls, but when like this big thing about player hockey, like, it's harder hitting, it's more aggressive, and you've seen 2 of the softest penalties you've ever seen.
It was a poke check from Ken, and he's from behind the player. Okay, I get that, but he hasn't even touched the player. His stick's just sort of involved, like
he's pushed his stick in, not done any sort of motion with it.
And the thing I'd like to know as well is like, obviously as a Leeds Knights fan, you might be watching this going, well, no, he's definitely checked him or he's held him or whatever. But if you flip it, if those penalties were given against Leeds and the result had gone the other way, what would you be saying about it?
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it?
And again, this is open to interpretation, and we're always inviting comments down. Yeah. So, if you're a Leeds fan, obviously in the end we know what the result was, and that's fine, and, fair play to Leeds, they stuck it out.
I think it's...
But we'd love, like that, on the flip side, we'd love to hear your comments as well. So, again, this isn't us bashing Leeds fans or anything like that. It's more the calls on the official where we were like, for God's sake. And again, as Leeds, if you're a team and you're getting a power play, then by all means, you're not going to be like, oh, well, what? No, it's playoff hockey, like we're all saying. You're going to go get that goal, aren't you?
And it's just one of them where if it was just like one of us was like, oh, that's not a penalty, that, you'd be a bit like, okay. But when 1,200 people are just like, whoa, what's going on here? Yeah. Something's not quite right. And unfortunately, it kind of dictated the beginning of the game, unfortunately for us, but we stuck at the sort of game plan, and we kept going, and once again we've gone backwards and forwards with Leeds, and
it was a really tight game, wasn't it, for the first 2 periods, really tight, and obviously I know you like going into the scorers and things like that, but again the man, the myth, the legend, the inevitable one, as
Thanos,
he's been mentioned before. He was pivotal in that, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely clutch. Got his hat-trick last night. Also note that he's re-signed for another season, which is worth mentioning.
That is a joke of a signing.
Massive for us.
I think a lot of teams, probably Leeds included, I thought he'd probably go to Leeds if we didn't keep him.
Yeah.
He's that good, and I think he would be an absolute,
150 points in Leeds team.
Yeah.
Calling it there, I genuinely think that.
Yeah. Do you know, like, the threat MK have offered to the league title? I think if you put Sobchak in that Leeds team, I just think they'll just go even more. He's a joke of a signing. I just hope, as a fan of Seahawks and both for him as a player, that we actually do him the justice and we have a good season next year. He deserves
and carry
it
on these playoffs how they're meant to be. Like making sure we go at this, tooth and nail.
Yeah, we'll get into that later because we was really interested about the interview.
Yeah.
But in the end, lads, so we were.
It was 4-4 later on.
4-4, wasn't it?
You know, going into the last 5 minutes of the game. You know, we just equalised just before the 50th minute, so you thought last 10 minutes it's all to play for.
Yeah, we were 4-3, weren't we? 4-3, and then they played one.
And then 56-55, they've got that big one there.
Yeah.
It's just given that notch ahead.
And Kieran Brown, the one to get it as well. So that meant we had to pull the keeper.
Yeah, and try and do what we did the night before.
Yeah, try and get a late goal on. And
you know, unfortunately, this time when they tried clearing the puck, they did clear it, and Matt Bissonnette found himself in a bit of space just to slot it into an empty net.
Yeah.
You know, a good effort by us, to be honest with you.
I agree.
I didn't expect anything at all this weekend, but I can tell you what, them Leeds Knights players probably think, do you know what? Them Seahawks lads have given us a game.
Do you know what? Yeah, I don't think fans can come away from that and be like, obviously you'd be disappointed in terms of the picture, but in terms of the performances, I think Seahawks have put in 2 really good.
It's a fair result. A win apiece.
I was going to say, I think
result.
both teams, you wouldn't have. You'd have felt I'd done to if one of these teams came away with nothing for the whole weekend. So I do think, you know, the way the results went, both teams deserve something. It's relatively fair. So yeah, good weekend.
Yeah.
So what followed before we wrap up Seahawks Reacts? What followed our performance then? We had an interview from Matty, didn't we? And we wanted to touch on this a little bit. Not the reaction that we expected, was it? Obviously, we could understand his frustration and things like that, and we saw that obviously visibly on the bench after the game he was really disappointed.
Yeah, I was going to say, you pointed out to me because you know, I need the glasses on to see that far across the ice, but you said about Matty's instant reaction was deflated, dejected,
and understandably so when you're 5 minutes away from 4 points. Totally get it, but in some interesting comments in the interview, wasn't it? It almost seemed like that's us done.
Yeah, there was a couple of comments of it's not in our hands anymore. I mean, I don't know if there's something we're missing amongst the lines, but the way I see it is Leeds do a double win against Peterborough, we do a double against Telford, we're through.
We are. They're 2 points ahead of us currently. They've got a 1 win in overtime, we've got 1 win in overtime. They've just got 1 more win than us in regulation. Now, if we get 2 regulation wins against Telford, you know, I know that it goes, there's all different matter of things, but the math's there for itself, is it not?
I think they've fixated too much on this thing of like, okay, we had it in our control and now it's not so much, but we do still have control of the games that are in front of us.
We just have to win our games, as simple as that. You win both those games and whatever will be, will be.
Do you
know, the thing is this is probably for me that it was a harder running for the Final Four than last year.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember what we finished on points-wise last year, but I don't think we'd have needed the points that we need this year just to qualify. I think this goes for both groups as well when you look at it. I think, like, what you need to qualify now, I think a lot of people, when you two talked to Nath Salem, and it was just like, win your own games, win an away game.
Yeah, 8 points.
Jobs are good un.
It
doesn't seem to be good enough now.
No.
You need something more.
Yeah, so he said Slava and the rest of them said 8's the magic number. And you know what, like, more to the point, they did seem really disappointed and it seemed deflated. The lads are gutted, X, Y and Z, and obviously they're gutted, they've just lost like in the last 5 minutes. Okay, I understand that, but if you go next weekend and you beat Telford twice, and obviously I know there's a variable of Peterborough not winning, but you beat Peterborough twice, you beat Leeds and you beat Peterborough, you deserve it, don't you? You beat Leeds, you beat Peterborough and you beat Telford twice, you deserve to go to Coventry.
Yeah.
So if it were me, personally, and again, I'm not a hockey player, I've never played hockey in my life, so I might be missing something. But if it were me, I'd be saying to the boys, this is last chance saloon now. I wouldn't be sort of being like, well, you know...
Well, don't give Peterborough a free hit. Put them under pressure. Yeah. Make sure you get your wins. Put them under
for me
pressure.
though, it's just kind of like these sort of negative reactions to it. If we do go win both games against Telford and qualify, we've already got our minds on a negative set, and then you've got to get back up to get in the final 4. It's like, no, let's keep going. And if we don't get there, we don't get there.
We've give it a
but at least you can turn around to the fans and go, do you know what, we've give this a good crack. And not just, at the minute it just seems like, oh, we're just going to go to Telford and play these games out.
We've got a huge game on Saturday at home.
Which I think the home game being on Saturday is massive for us,
and
for a change.
And then remember, we've got Chamber back
on Sunday.
On the Sunday. That's massive. Like,
and he's going to have a fire in his belly.
He's going to have
as
an
well.
absolute fire in his belly, isn't he? He'll have been on the ice for the last 2 weeks with the lads, chomping at the bit to go. You know, like he's huge coming back to us. So win your home game with X amount of fans in the building who's going to be screaming. Everybody wants to go to Coventry. You know, and leave it in Peterborough's hands.
Yeah.
I know that Leeds are going to want to go to Peterborough on Saturday, and they're going to want to win.
Oh, this is far too close for comfort for Leeds.
Yeah,
like they are
100%.
They are going into these games thinking, well, we can probably give them some points.
No,
absolutely not.
And
they're a team, a semi-professional team, and they've got fans paying to go and watch them. They need to be taken.
Yeah. But the thing is, for me as well, is that it's not just a case of as long as you finish in the top 2. I think you need to finish top to stay away from that Swindon side because that Swindon team are looking quality
for a favourable draw. Exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's what you've got to be careful of as well.
Yeah. And when Peterborough go on Sunday night, there's not a chance they're going to try and roll over at the Castle, is there?
No.
So, from all of us, come on, boys, have some faith. You know, put it in Peterborough's hands and put it in. And Leeds definitely aren't going to roll over, and neither should we.
Yeah,
that's almost
about
well.
Control what you can, but don't worry too much about what you can't. Do what you need to do on the ice, and then what happens after that will be. As long as we can sit there and go, we've give this a damn good crack, then
we're happy with that, aren't we?
Yeah. And if not, invite us on the bench and we'll be the motivator because I would gladly jump on there and try getting some energy going. You know, it's going to be a massive week on this weekend. We're still in it. We're still having a shout.
Yeah. We've got this.
Have the faith, boys. Come on.
We've got this. Yeah, Matt has put together a fantastic squad this year. He's got them this far. Get the boys to do the business.
Let's do it. And that concludes Seahawks Reaction. So now we're going to reflect on the rest of the results for the weekend, starting with a Friday fixture.
Yeah, interesting one. Another Friday fixture. Romford having to travel down to Steel Dogs in Sheffield, so could say maybe a few man games there from Sheffield saying no, you will play you, but you can play us on the Friday
with a full complement. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, that one, wasn't it, from the Steel Dogs?
Yeah.
So it didn't work. Is the bottom line to that one?
No, we actually on last week's podcast was throwing all sorts, being like, you know, Sheffield are going to be fresh. They'll have full reign of the players, which they did. Romford, if they've been working during the day, you know, X, Y, and Z, you know, like all these different elements. And I think I back Steel Dogs. I think you might back the Raiders, but yeah.
I think I back Steel Dogs, to be fair. I thought it might have been too much for them. Yeah,
more to the point then, we both backed the Steel Dogs, and yeah, Raiders 5-4 in the end.
Some performance there.
Regulation time as well. So
some performance. Yeah, I think I put them down for 0 points in that group, or 1 point or something, and well, they made me look alright.
I put Steel Dogs and Raiders to get a win off each other, and yeah, we'll get into the other results later on, but let's just focus on this one. A massive performance on a Friday night for the Romford Raiders.
Their players, you know, the big names, Shaw Miller, you know, being the big one.
Yeah.
Well,
he's absolutely having a blinder.
He is. Morrison as well.
Yeah.
He scored, I believe he scored 4 goals in this game. So what does that tell you? You know what I mean? When you need your big players to show up, that's a prime example of that. Yeah. And now, actually, overall, he's the top point scorer in playoffs out of any team.
Nice.
So fair play to him.
Yeah. So that finished up the Friday fixtures, and then we rolled into Saturday. First one being Leeds Knights hosting the Hull Seahawks, which we've covered. Big overtime win there for the Seahawks. Then we had the Telford Tigers hosting the Peterborough Phantoms. This one went to a shootout.
Yeah.
So,
very interesting.
Yeah, we love a good shootout.
Yeah.
And the Peterborough Phantoms took it 5-4.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that game, obviously we had an eye on it, didn't we, while we was watching the whole game. But sort of for us, we expected Peterborough to come away with the points. I actually thought they might have done it a little bit easier than that against Telford.
Telford have put on some decent performances.
Well, they got a point off Leeds. They've done it again against Peterborough. It's just a shame that they couldn't.
It's literally been fine margins. Like you think, so they got the point against Leeds. It could have been 2 if they'd won that game. This one, if they'd have won that, they could have easily been up thereabouts. It's just them fine margins where they haven't quite got it over the line.
Yeah, got something cooking though over at Telford. So I think can't take an eye off them, especially going into next season. They're going to be big. But
absolutely.
Peterborough obviously coming away with the 2 points there. Telford picking up a point, and then the final fixture on that Saturday was the Milton Keynes Lightning against Swindon Wildcats.
So the two teams you're expected to be sort of running away with that group. You know, as we've mentioned when we were talking about Seahawks, that Swindon team are absolutely cooking.
Yeah,
they are.
You know, they've nigh on perfect record, aren't they, going through it? So
taking the overtime win.
And
4-3.
I think it's more worth mentioning as well how many teams go to MK and get results at MK. And it was a really tight game this. I think it was like 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, but 2 points is 2 points in it, and fair play to Swindon for that.
Yeah, and we'll obviously come on to the league standings as it comes to, because I know that's going to play for something quite interesting.
Yeah.
But coming on to the Sunday's fixtures, first of all, Romford Raiders hosting the Sheffield Steel Dogs, and this one wasn't even close at all, was it, really? This one's an annihilation, 7-2 for the Raiders.
This sees Sheffield unable to make Coventry at this point, which is obviously a shame. You always want to be fighting through to the last weekend, don't you? But
if you're their GM though, you've got to be asking yourself some questions.
I know we mentioned it a few times, but their sort of end to the season was literally so flat. They didn't go get wins to build up momentum or anything, and you thought, okay, they get the compliment back for the playoffs, they'll probably give it a go, and it hasn't really happened, has it, really?
Can I ask a question about this? So this is topical, obviously. Do you think when Steelers take Sam Tremblay away, half the team are like, well, that's it? Because it seemed like when he went up to the Steelers full time, their form has just been so
sporadic.
Yeah, like I don't think it's been that, has it? Like I can't think of the last time where I thought, that's a good result that for Sheffield. There hasn't. I don't know what it is. It just.
Did they already just have their eyes on next year? It's like, we've got a couple more extra games, like brilliant, like.
Would you not rather, instead of all these two-ways where players are popping on and off to the Steelers, would you not just have a core team that you're happy, you know what you've got week in, week out?
Yeah, well, we talked about this.
We got here.
We talked about this, didn't we? About fair enough, you've been a bleeder team to an elite league squad, but.
One or two players is fine.
People have got season passes for the Steel Dogs to go watch that specific team. You've got to focus on the setup there as well, not just how can we bleed people through. And you got to focus on your own. And coming into the playoffs and stuff, you'd have thought they might have had a bit more about them, but evidently Romford shutting the door on them.
Yeah, so let's put some emphasis on Romford as well, because I'll be the first to say that I didn't really give Romford much of a chance in this playoffs, and I'll happily eat my words. I think we actually got a message to our account, and it weren't like an aggressive message or anything like that. They just said to us when they watched our predictions, they said, you're writing off Romford a bit too early.
That's fair enough.
And we was like, you know what, fair play, like take that on the chin. We'll see how it goes, and look how it went.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like,
I like that
little side note here, possibly my team of the season.
Romford.
Yeah, cup final and what they're doing in this playoffs. They've not done themselves any harm, have they? Looking into next season, they've definitely got a decent foundation.
They've had ups and downs, imports, injuries. Then they brought Yokoyama in, and Yokoyama went, and they got Morrison in later on. And
I think they've just had this sudden. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They've overachieved a little bit, and it's kind of like maybe halted them a few times. Like, fucking hell, what we're doing.
It's never been thingy, has it? It's never been like steady for them. They've always had sort of like a little thing there where it's like but like brilliant. I love the fact that they've gone out and said, doubt us if you want to, we'll show you what we can do.
And take it on the chin, and do you know what, I like that, the fact that we get messages like that, like don't write them off. And fine, we're happy to eat our words on stuff like that.
Huge, in regulation time as well, no giving points away, a huge 4-point weekend to Raiders, so absolutely fair play to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quality that.
Next fixture, well, one that we've covered, Hull Seahawks hosting Leeds Knights. 6-4 loss for the Hull Seahawks, but give it a good go, as we've mentioned, and we'll go again for the next weekend.
Yeah, so then we had the Peterborough Phantoms and Telford Tigers in Peterborough. Peterborough taking this one in regulation 4-2, but still relatively close. So
yeah, big thorn in the side of this Telford side, and I think it's something for us to worry about going into next week as well.
Agreed. Yeah, and puts us in a bit of a difficult situation and sort of leaves our fate in their hands, doesn't it?
Yeah, so then the final fixture being Swindon Wildcats, Milton Keynes Lightning. You did it once, you're going to do it twice.
Without going into overtime as well.
Say, apparently so, but we'll do one better, we'll do it in regulation.
You know what, like I sort of mocked you a little bit when we did our predictions, like putting Swindon down to win. the full playoffs. And
I've
do you
got
know
Kings up
what?
as well.
I think you've got a nice little ticker here. Do you know what? Like, if we could have had a cheeky bet on that, you'd have had a
Might
decent
be
return on that, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like Swindon, if they top their group, will really fancy it against Peterborough or Hull. 100%.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They would be favourites.
The semi-final.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. So yeah, they took it 4-3 again, but in regulation time,
Yeah.
they just seem to be motoring away quite nicely. We'll have a look at the
I was
standings
going to say,
now.
let's go into
and
that. 'cause
let's
that's
have a
gonna
look,
be
see
interesting.
how things look going into this final
Yeah.
fixtures and the last week of the playoffs. So Group A, which is Leeds Knights, Peterborough Phantoms, Hull Seahawks and Telford. Leeds Knights sitting on 7 points after 4 games. Peterborough Phantoms second, 4 games, 6 points. Hull Seahawks 4 played, 4 points, and Telford 4 played, 2 points.
Yeah. Close group, that innit?
It is, yeah. Obviously not as close as Group B, as we'll come to. And, you know, I know there's been a bit of negativity from the Hull Seahawks thinking we're sort of out of it, but absolutely we're not at all. There's still a big chance for us to get something from this, you know. If Leeds do the double against Peterborough and we do the double against Telford.
Yeah, look, if you reverse the fixtures, all Seahawks have got Telford, all they have to do is make sure they go and do the double on Telford. Peterborough have got Leeds, so they've got to come away with something.
Yeah.
If they've got to come away with something at the end of the day, and if they don't come away with anything, then...
Realistically, Peterborough need to get a win against Leeds, because
that's
if
what I mean.
7 points wouldn't be enough, so, you know, they've got to have a,
Yeah.
you know, unless they do a double
They've got to-
overtime.
I'm
Could you
gonna say,
imagine
yeah.
the scenes though? Can you imagine the scenes if Peterborough did Leeds in regulation, a double over them, and we got a 4-point weekend and Leeds dropped out? Because look at the table.
Yeah, I know it's not beyond.
It isn't
yeah.
that like again. That's why it was so confusing, that interview.
Yeah.
It's not that far. It's
Well,
3
it
points.
really isn't. It really isn't when you, because you got to take the upcoming fixtures into consideration and who's played who. Have you played your harder teams, and are you playing what you might consider
I
an
think
easier
this
team?
is the hardest one for Peterborough now. You
Yeah.
know, they're probably thinking, oh, we're on here, we're 1 foot in the door, but hang on a minute.
Yeah.
You've now got the
Leeds
hardest
in the
weekend.
Leeds in the last weekend is not an easy task, and we can't overlook Telford. Like I know we said, we need to get the 4 points against them.
They've gone to overtime in more of these games than not. You know what I mean?
They've
They're
dragged
gonna be
Leeds to
really
an
hard team.
overtime. They've dragged Peterborough to an overtime. We need 4 points this weekend, and that's the be all and end all.
We do, yeah, we do, and that's what's in our control. Is we make sure we deliver on them games, and we end on 8 points. And do you know what? That means Peterborough have to go away and take at least 2 points from this weekend.
Yeah, I just think Matty needs to have a proper look at a serious game plan here. I think if we go to Telford, and when Telford come to us, and if we play those double games as if we played Leeds, I don't think it works.
No.
I think Telford are just a gritty team,
Yeah.
hard fought.
This is a heart over.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get like that silky, fast-flowing hockey where there isn't many stoppages. I think you are just going to have to fight for every little thing, and you know, without going into the fights and taking stupid penalties, I think we're going to have to be a bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
And it'll show what character we've got, because you know, we go into it, and if we leave it on the line, we'll probably qualify. Which, you know, is
We've got the
massive.
quality. We can do the hard, gritty stuff when we want to. We just got to be consistent with it, and like you say, not give away too many.
Just need to give my good mate Thomas over there. Is it Thomas Thompson? That's him.
Oh,
mate who'll call me the C word.
Yeah.
Just give him a good wallop early on, and he's not going to do out.
Yeah. Let's remember that their imports have been on fire the last 2 months, haven't they? So
all to
It's
play for
tricky,
still.
really
All
tricky.
to play for. Let's get into this weekend and do the business. But yeah, shall we go into Group B?
Group B, yeah. So this one of Swindon Wildcats, Milton Keynes Lightning, Romford Raiders, and Sheffield Steel Dogs. You know, this one's turned into a real sort of nice group. This one. So Swindon lead the way. 4 played, 8 points. The only team to have achieved maximum points so far, which is, you know, tip of the hat to them for that.
Yeah.
Milton Keynes following up, 4 played, 5 points. And then it gets a bit more interesting when you look at third place, Romford Raiders, 4 played, 5 points. And Sheffield Steel Dogs, as we touched on, unfortunately are already out of the running.
Yeah.
And they are 4 played, 0 points.
Yeah. This is going to be. I mean, Milton Keynes and Romford have just got everything to play for.
I think,
haven't
do you
they?
know what? Like, the psychology on Milton Keynes here is, I bet, you know, Tim Wallace is a bit like, do not do this to me again.
They're playing Sheffield this weekend, and I think arguably, no disrespect to Sheffield, Tim Wallace will be wiping a bit of sweat away from his forehead. And that's not saying they've got it won, definitely not. Romford have a hell of a task this weekend ahead of them, trying to get some points off Swindon.
And if they do, then they deserve to be there, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
You know, it's the same as us, like, we've got to go to war in our weekend.
Romford are sort of in the same boat as us, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, you winning you're in kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to see this table changing. Obviously, from our perspective, we definitely want to see it changing by the end of this weekend. But I would like to see some movement here because showing that it's all to play for.
I'm a big fan of the fact that the top 2 teams in the league could still not make it.
Crazy.
And I know we've said between us, and we've been throwing around all sorts of random theories
Variables.
and predictions, and we've like had it where like now the Milton Keynes or Leeds make it. We've got like, you know, Hull, Peterborough, Romford, and Swindon there, and how that would look, but. The reality is, it could potentially happen. Yeah. You just never know. Like you say, we've seen some sort of freaky results, and
Telford and Steel Dog are out. Other than that, it's still.
But they're out. But there could be massive disruptors this weekend.
Not? Yeah. Why not?
And they've got nothing to lose.
If I'm a hockey player, I am not rocking up and being like, just get through this, get my money and go. I'm going to be like, no, I want to win both game my season.
Well, don't forget, both of these teams have got one last home game of the season.
Exactly, yeah.
So, like,
one last hurrah for their home.
Yeah, show your fans the appreciation.
Get your fan base back in the seats next season.
Yeah,
these are what these games are.
And at this point, the fans just want to see somebody get absolutely nailed, don't they? Yeah. And like you said, if that happens to be like Sobchak gets absolutely levered centre ice by a Telford player, do you know what? It's all going to bubble off. It's going to kick off. But then Sobchak's injured, our main man, and you don't know what. Yeah. I'm not saying like teams are dirty or all like that, but you never know, do you?
No. Look at Bristol.
Yeah.
It's the exact same boat. They couldn't qualify and all that kicked off, didn't it? So
chewed us up.
Yeah, big time.
You know, like you say, it's easy just to say Telford, Sheffield, out, no big deal, but they could be the disruptors this weekend, and you know, a lot of fan bases will be looking at them 2 clubs and just going, do you know what, do something about this.
Yeah.
Make this an absolute belting weekend to be had.
Yeah, 100%. But other than them 2, it's anyone's game really, isn't it?
And it's exactly how we wanted it to be.
100%.
You know, you don't want, you know, as good as Swindon are, they probably have qualified, you know, fair play to them, but it's good that it's going to go to the final weekend and it's not settled after the first 2 and you think, there's these last games.
Yeah, literally could go to the final night.
By the minute, the tables are going to be doing this and they're going up and down. It's going to be an amazing weekend of hockey. So glad that I'm on holiday this weekend. I'll be in Turkey doing this on the phone or on the stream. I'll at lunch and my wife will be, can you pass me this? I'm like, not now, we've got a power play here. But it's going to be a fantastic weekend of hockey and one to really look forward to.
Massively looking forward to it. Can't wait, and let's
get it going.
Let's get at it, and let's get to Coventry. I know I said that Hull Seahawks won't get there, but obviously it would be nice for our own boys to get there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that concludes this week's look at the fixtures and standings. So now we're going to crown our player of the week this week for this week's playoffs fixtures, and it goes to one of our own, Owen Thanos Sobchak.
King Canada himself.
Yeah,
what a performance he's had this weekend. He practically carried us through both of them games and, you know, helped us get that result on Saturday against Leeds, getting that goal just before we went into overtime. So it was absolutely massive for us. You could argue that it was the reason why we managed to get them 2 points on Saturday. So he came away with a hat-trick on Saturday, and on Sunday
3 points and a go, three goals, and an assist.
Yeah.
Continuing that great run of form, and also obviously being announced for another year with Hull Seahawks, which is a massive addition to our roster. Like you said earlier in the podcast, hopefully we can sort of subsidise that for him and work around him. But if we are to have any success next weekend against Telford, he'll be a massive part of that.
His back's going to have to be really aching next weekend because we need him to carry us.
You actually mentioned that, didn't you, during
I did, like
game on Sunday.
You could just see everything about him. He is the, you know, when we go forward, it's through him. When something's created, it's because of him. He carries the team. You know, and if he does have a bit of a quiet night, it does reflect.
Yeah.
But Serby, absolutely world class. Great to see you playing the way you are, and you thoroughly deserve this week's
Do
star
us a
of
favour,
the
mate.
week.
Do us a favour.
That concludes this week's Player of the Week, and now we're going to our big talking point. So now we're going to go into this week's big talking point, and this week we're going to look at the importance of goaltending in the playoffs and the conversation around a fourth import potentially coming into the league. So first of all, we'll start with the importance of netminders. So we want to look at, we've all got, as we've mentioned, the likes of Owen Sobchak playing for us, absolute inevitable players. But at the flip side, our goalkeepers really the unsung heroes of the teams when getting to the big games.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we all know how important they are, just in general. Obviously, probably arguably more important coming into the playoffs. But I think we can kick right off by trying to get your thoughts on this as fans. We've seen quite a few comments where people have thrown the 50p worth in on who they think should be starting in the net, where you've got two relatively decent netminders in. You might look at Leeds and think, well, they've got Gospel, but they've got Walker, who's also a decent side, or we've got McLaughlin and Dimitri Zamosdra. Which one do you start there? First and foremost, I just want to say this is playoff hockey.
Yeah.
If you don't go in with your first netminder, you need to quickly figure out who that is and get them in the net, because there's too much at stake for this stuff, and you don't get fans or people buying season tickets. They don't buy them to watch people get fair ice time. They pay to watch people win.
I agree. In terms of getting to Coventry, we've got to remember, as an ownership group, as a manager, as a coach, your aim is to win. Your aim is to get to Coventry. And it's not about giving people favours. Sports cutthroat, and getting to Coventry can guarantee your club, success, fans, additional money, revenue, a whole end of things. And remember, you've compiled a roster of people who ultimately their aim is to get to Coventry. So we can't be affording to sort of be like, yeah, well, let's put Harrison Walker in this year. And that's no disrespect to him, because he obviously is an amazing keeper. That's just an example. However, we can't discard, let's just put Harrison Walker in instead of Gozzy this week, because, I've got to be fair to him.
It goes out the window.
Everyone knows that this is a team, this is about the team. We've got to make the decisions for the best. You don't ditch Ryan Wells for Swindon, for a Swindon Wildcats 2 player, because it's fair and ice time. You just don't do it.
No, for me, I look at it a bit differently. We've obviously seen with the fixtures this week that a lot of the games have gone to overtime, etc. And for me, it's alright thinking we'll just outscore everybody. We've seen the likes of Telford, giving Peterborough a good game. Outscoring people isn't necessarily going to be the way forward when it comes to playoffs. No. And I'd rather keep the back door shut. And if that means having my number one bloke in there, just because he is my number one, then so be it. I'd rather be not conceding instead of thinking, oh no, they've scored again because we haven't got our top man in the net, and we've got to go and try and score. And it's alright saying we'll go score, but when you're playing the likes of Leeds and stuff like that, they're a strong defensive team, and you're not just going to keep scoring.
And you've got to think about the freedom having your number one netminder in gives you the rest of the team to go forward, having that trust behind you. If
you look at which teams are top of Group A and Group B, you've got Swindon there, and you've got Leeds there, you've got Sam Gospel, and you've got Renimar. Now, those are arguably, again, other than Walker, who I've played an amazing amount of games, those are arguably the 2 top netminders in the league, and that's obviously transparent in where they are in their league, because yes, although that they have got great players going forward, like more to your point as, the reason why they're there is because they've got somebody between the pipes who the full team are confident with, who ultimately 9 times out of 10 is going to show up.
And we saw that when we played Leeds this week, and some of the saves that Gospel made was, if anybody else was in the goal, wouldn't have saved it. It's just as simple as that, you know what I mean? And when you're seeing the goalkeeper pulling off some absolutely stupid saves, as a forward, we're just thinking like, okay, I'll score inside. That presence when a goalkeeper gets in that headspace, you're done.
I mean, can we talk about our situation a little bit over at Hull? Because I think Matty has been fair enough with these netminders throughout the season. Obviously, we've got 2 really good quality netminders with Zamosdra and McLaughlin, and I really I do like both. But I feel like what Matty's done at the beginning of the season is given them a blank piece of paper and gone, you two can write your own resume here for this season, and when we finish the season, I'll have a look at it, and the best ones get in the playoffs. And I genuinely think that's what he's done, and I stand by it, to be honest with you. We all like Jordan McLaughlin, but in my opinion, there's one standout. Neither.
But the thing is, it's not just on your opinion. I think like the factual information is there when we look at what has happened over the season when we've played one or the other. You know what I mean? I think you can see it on the ice with the team, and I think obviously the goaltending performances have showed as well. I'm not just going to start bashing anybody because that's not what we're here to do. But I think you can tell the difference between a certain goaltender being in and not. Yeah. You know, and I think all three of us agreed that the whole swapping and changing most weekends isn't where we would do it or want it to be working. I know a lot of people will be like, well, you've got to have two decent goaltenders and they've both got to get ice time. I'd rather just have one bloke and he's in all season for me, if he's fit and healthy to do it. Yeah. I'd rather just have one absolute world quality goalkeeper. You're in for the 60 games if you can play them.
Yeah, and look at the headache. To be honest, look at the headache it has given Matty this season trying to pick between the two. And he's given him fair crack at games. And even when we've played bigger teams, he's not just gone and thought, well, I'm going to stick Deemer and go for the whole weekend against MK. He's literally, he's gone.
You've had a fair crack at the better teams, the mid-table teams and the lower teams to see how they perform. And that's what I'm saying. We aren't just going to say this based on our opinion of who we think. There's data there, which we'll obviously look at towards the end of the season and put this, you know.
Yeah, so I actually rate that what Matty's done there because he has allowed them to put it in their control, essentially. And you know, if you're like Jordan McLaughlin now, who's not getting the games in playoffs, maybe you just got to take.
You just got to take on the chin.
You know what? To be fair, like this is more this topic. We discussed this before we started our big talking point, and it was more really based around the conversations that were happening in forums and this, that, the other. From our perspective, it seems that Geordie's buying in, even regardless of being on the ice or not. You know, he's egging up the lads. He's helping out.
Yeah, because he still serves a purpose.
He still serves a purpose in the team massively. But you know, for people to come out and say, well, you know, he's been with us since season 1, and that's why we need to be fair. Well, Geordie's also probably been part of that discussion that him, Deemer, and Matty have had, and Matty said, "This is the card that I'm going to play. This is the reason." And you know, Geordie's been part of it all season, and you know, he's had standout games against Leeds, and you know, games where he's spun his head. He's played a part in this season. At the end of the season, if we won the playoffs, hypothetically, we wouldn't say, Deemer, thank God we had you all season and just you. Geordie still played a part. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's playoff hockey, and Matty's made his choice, and you know, Deemer and Geordie both know that, and Geordie seems to be sort of on board with that. And look at Swindon, for example, they're in the exact same boat. They've got Rennie Mann, they've got Perry. Perry's a great keeper. He could play probably 5th downwards. He could play in any of their teams. But you know, he backs up. He plays when he's called upon, when Rennie Mann doesn't, and he works for them. So realistically, why shouldn't that happen for us?
I just think, like, I want to be just like really sort of like selfish about this, but as somebody who's paying £500 for a season pass, I'm not being funny out. If number one netminder isn't in the biggest games, why would I renew my season pass? I'm sorry. I mean, that is the bottom line. Like, you know, we've mentioned it many times throughout our big talking points and stuff. It's not cheap to get these season passes. I'm not being funny out. I ain't paying £500 for somebody just to have a fair go. Playing.
No.
I'm sorry. No,
it goes out the window.
If you want to have fair time playing, then drop down the leagues and wherever he gets it a little go. I'm not being funny out. We're getting 1,500 in. On the best nights, them 1,500 people want to see success and wins and trophies, and that comes by the best players playing.
And that's why I rate what Matty's done there. He's gone, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take my opinion out of the equation and I'll let you write your own resumes here, you guys.
He's brought in a more experienced goaltender that's won a bit, got a good reputation about him, but then he said to his guy who stuck by for the past 2 years before that, I've got you a bit of competition to raise your game a bit. But I'm giving you both the blank slate, like you say. Show me what you've got.
Jordan's been banged up for that. At the start of the season, he's come out and he said, I'm up for that. and Deemer's only going to improve my game, and arguably from last season, Geordie has probably become a better goaltender.
100%.
You know what I mean? So,
but it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it
so
doesn't.
You can't just be like, oh no, it's got to be Geordie. No, it hasn't. There's nothing wrong with him having a season, 2 seasons, whatever it might be, 3 seasons, learning.
Yeah.
And then he will become that guy.
That
And then
insane.
somebody else will come in
Yeah.
behind Geordie in time, and we'll be having this conversation
right
again.
now.
And somebody will be learning from Geordie. You can't do it overnight, unfortunately.
No,
Right now, unfortunately for Geordie in this situation, Deemer's just the person that Matty's gone with, and again it boils down to the fact that he's been there and he's done it, and it's probably not based on, you know, I don't think you're the man for this in terms of Geordie, or, you know, sort of, well, this is start in this game, this start and all that the other. He's going down to who he trusts, and again this is the game. This is the moment where you need to be. You need to be putting the players that you trust in those situations.
It's risk and reward.
This
is the way you've got to look at it. The risk is, like Azza says, you haven't got season pass holders paying good money to come and watch a team be fair to the players. You've got season pass holders coming to the team to get wins, and on the flip side is, you know, the reward of that is you put someone in who you trust, you get those wins.
I've got a perfect example. Hayden Levine from Peterborough Phantoms. They've got a backup netty, Luke Clark, I believe it is. You know, he's played a handful of games this season. Are they going to put Luke Clark in for any of these games that Peterborough have got? This weekend coming up when they're against Leeds, we'll give Luke a game because it's fair.
I get and understand, like, the love that we've got for Geordie as fans, and you know, the appreciation for him in our fan base. It speaks volumes itself. So he's got the love there, he's got the backing, but when it comes down to these nitty gritty moments, you have got to put your best foot forward. And
Matty's made his choice in this situation, and again, Geordie's gone with that. He's still part of it, and he doesn't seem upset, or he hasn't indicated anything for that. But again, like my point again, you're not telling Hayden Levine to go sit on the bench for their backup netty.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean? And
Harrison Walker, I'm sure he's fine with gospel going out in the playoffs. Like, you've just got to be on
your
knees in the moment.
At the end of the day, if you're not happy with it, you find another team to play for.
Yeah.
And that is the bottom line. Unfortunately, like Matty said to us before, it's a business. It's not just a team anymore, it's a business. And business means you make the most of your best assets. And unfortunately, Deemer, Gospel, Levine are the best assets in that position. So you use them.
Every season, Matty said that he wants to progress. He started, you know, we had a bit of a rubbish first season.
And
that was starting out, that's fine. Second season, we made a cup final. Third season, the idea is make it to Coventry, and if you do that, you need to have your best foot in front of you, don't you? Which sort of, you know, it brings us on to our second point that I've mentioned Levine a couple of times and things like that. You know, we wanted to sort of raise a bit of information in regards to an interview that Solway Sharks did this week, and they sort of threw out the hypothetical that, well, not hypothetical, they said that the ownership group, whoever that may be, have discussed a potential fourth import and things like that. And, you know, does that sort of bring, again, sticking to our big talking point and how important goaltending is, what do you guys think if an additional import is introduced? Do you think people go for, you know, follow the likes of Leeds and get another defensive import, which has obviously done them a lot of good this year, or do you see more people going down the avenue of bringing in British netminders, an import netminder, and what does that do to the British netminder scene? We have also, just to sprinkle another thing in there, we've also had people say that there shouldn't be import netminders. Like, what are your guys' takes on that?
I think the mix is good, and I think you would find that there is a mixture of going for a defensive import and or an import netminder. Obviously, you can play hockey in this country by choosing different positions. If you're playing netminder, you've got one spot on the night, so we've already got a limited amount of availability there for British netminders. Obviously, having an import in would raise the game. I see the benefits of that being, if you've got an import netminder, you've got to make everyone else raise the game because it's going to be harder to score.
For me, it'd be team dependent. Like when you look at Hull Seahawks, for example, your forward line as it is achieved 300 points. So I don't think you need like another import forward in there.
No.
Import defenseman potentially, but more teams are starting to look at maybe like ex-elite league players. So do you go down that avenue?
Phillips and
So the obvious thing would be an import netminder. So I'd be quite up for that. I think if Hull Seahawks says they're going to keep the 3 imports they've got and then just reinforce that with an import netminder, then I'd stick with that. I know that would mean Geordie or Deemer have got to go. One of them's got to, make way. But I'd be open to it.
You've said that you'd be for that. What's your take? You can see both sides. Do you think would you be for that point or would you be against it?
In terms of the quality of hockey, I'd be for it because I do think it'd make the game just go to that next level. The only negative I can see from it, like I mentioned, is the fact that there's only so many positions for a netminder in there, and are we just gonna make being a netminder a bit of a dying art for British people? I can see it going both ways, but I don't know. Whether I'm for it or against it, I would say I'm more for it than I am against it. I can just see that there are implications there.
I'd personally go for, if I were a Seahawks fan, speaking as a Seahawks fan, I'd personally go for a defenseman in regards to a 4th import. I've seen like last year what we got from Brock Bartholomew was unbelievable, but I've got to agree with you lads in regards to adding an import netminder. If we had an import netty this season, if we had a potential 4th import, that would sort of that could have bridged the gap potentially of us between the top 3, but it does beg it begs the favour of you've got a netty and a backup netty and one's playing the full game, so what's happening? But we say that it sort of lowers the chances of British netminders, but do they drop down leagues then, or do they drop down to...
You've got to think that there's obviously been rumours about another team joining the league again next year. So there's obviously a space for 2 more goalkeepers at another club. So there's chances there for people.
And it's not every team is going to go for an import netminder.
No. Like I said, this is why I say it's team specific. Some teams will think, right, there's another chance to get more goal scorers in.
Look at Leeds Knights, they're not getting an import. Why would you do that? You've got Sam Gospel. Why are you replacing Rennie Mar? You're not going to do that, are you? Do you know what I mean? So, it's a bit of a topical one. Overall, and again, that translates to if you get a 4th outfield player, which player drops down, but a lot of teams are running 4 lines, aren't they? It only means that a 4th line player, I know that sounds cutthroat and sort of brutal, but it only means that a 4th line is going to go down the second team and you maybe rip it up a little bit in the national
What it does mean though is more money has to go into it, more wages.
So it has to make sense then. If you put more money in, it has to be the right move.
It's interesting though, because again, I'm referring back to the Solway interview, I really enjoyed it. The Solway GM, I'm really sorry, I'm forgetting the names, I'm not really good with stuff like that, but he said sometimes it would be, after speaking to players in the league, British players, it would be easier to get someone an import for and house them rather than pulling someone up from Swindon to uproot their family and sort of take them to so like there's that as well, isn't there? Who's willing to move from Swindon, where they've got 1 hour bus rides here, there and everywhere every week, or 2 hour or whatever, to Solway where you're doing 8, 9, 10 hours on the bus every weekend. Whereas on the other foot, if you're a player in Sweden or Canada or whatever and you're not getting much game time, but you can rip it up here and you're going to get paid and you can see Britain and things like that.
It might just be an opportunity. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
That's it.
Yeah, well,
good talking point.
Yeah, I'm quite happy at that, lads. If you two both are, I think that makes it a nice to throw it back to those watching and get your opinion as always. It's does open up big talking points like we've tried to throw out here. So once again, just get in touch, messages, whatever it might be, and let us know. Put us to rights for a change. But from us, that's our big talking point this week. Thanks for watching. So now we're going to look at the fixtures for the last week of the playoffs.
All comes down to this, doesn't it?
Yep, some big fixtures, as we've mentioned. We're really glad it's going down to this last weekend, and we're not guaranteed who's going, and that makes it really an interesting week. So we'll have a little look. So it starts on a Friday once again, and the Sheffield Steel Dogs hosting the Milton Keynes Lightning.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because it's obviously Sheffield's last home game of the season.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that they're going to be bang up for it. They want to give we said earlier, give the fans a performance, get some more bums in the seats next season.
I'm wondering if this could be a bit of a banana skin for MK because this weekend is the Steel City Showdown, isn't it? So I wonder how many people will be in town just coming down
Just
in the neutral view. Might have a full house there.
Yeah.
And if people are cheering in the favour of Sheffield, it could be a bit of a one for MK, especially with all the pressure that they've got this weekend.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier, MK is going to be in the back of their minds, we're going to throw this away like we did last year. I think there's a lot more pressure riding on Milton Keynes here, and I think it's a free game for Sheffield to just put a bit of a show on, do whatever, disrupt. As I mentioned earlier, they're a disruptor now, and if they can halt the Milton Keynes there.
Yeah, personally, I don't see it. I think Milton Keynes know what they've got at stake now, so they're going to have to be very, very.
Again, though, it's that travel on the Friday that Sheffield had done. I know it didn't work with Romford. They still went there and won, but I don't know. On paper, it's just Milton Keynes just breeze them aside. But there's a part of me just thinking, and for the sake of the playoffs, let's make a game.
Let's put it this way: I don't see Milton Keynes. I don't see Sheffield taking it to them twice. They've probably only got one game in it, and if it's going to be one game, it'll be this one. So,
Milton Keynes win it through.
Yeah.
If you look at it like that, because like you say,
Swindon
Romford have got the double against Swindon.
I'm going to go Milton Keynes for this one though.
Yeah, I think Milton Keynes will do it.
Yeah, I back Milton Keynes too, guys. I think Steel Dogs have been poor in this post-season, no disrespect to them.
Yeah.
I don't see it getting any better, unfortunately.
Go head over heart, yeah.
And that moves us nicely onto the Saturday fixtures. Hull Seahawks with a home game on the Saturday, which for me I think is a big positive one.
Advantage,
big advantage for us this weekend, and that's against the Telford Tigers.
Yeah, this is going to be a difficult game. We know how good Telford can be, and how much they've sort of improved coming into this back end of the season and into the playoffs. They've taken a point off Peterborough, they've taken a point at Leeds, so they're not going to make it easy for us. I am going to go with my heart on this one though and say we'll take the two at home. I think we're a tough crowd at times, and everyone's going to be behind the lads. We still think there is definitely something to play for, so I'm going to go Seahawks.
I'm also going for Seahawks. I think head and heart. I back Seahawks. I really rate us out of a rink. I think, other than the last 5 minutes, I thought we were good against Leeds. I thought things went in their favour personally, and I know I sound bitter again, but shoot me, I don't care. Peterborough as well. I thought we looked good against those. Our backers at home against anybody. We've shown time and time again this season why that's the case. I know Telford have come to us and actually caused a bit of disruption this season at our rink, but I think with the circumstances, it's do or die for the Seahawks, and I think they'd rather do than die.
Yeah, I completely agree. For me, I feel the home game being on Saturday is a massive thing for us. Getting the fans behind us,
it's going to be pivotal in it for us, really. So.
That is the big, if the lads need any more backing, then that home game there, you win that. Surely that gives you that extra when you've got to go away where we've been a bit sketchy on the road.
With Chamber back as well.
Yeah, I think Saturday the roof's going to be absolutely flying off. It's going to be absolutely mega. I can just, in my mind now, that first goal on Saturday, we're getting some, that's going to go
Roof
off.
Will go off.
I won't want to be in Turkey and miss it, would you?
I think I'll hear the reaction from Turkey.
Yeah. So we're all going Seahawks on that one.
Yeah, Seahawks that one. And then we have Swindon Wildcats hosting the Romford Raiders. This is a bit, again, do or die for Romford. They've been good at times. They've gone to some big teams and got results. They're on level points currently with MK. I know Romford kind of need a big favour out of Sheffield. It's a tough one there. I can't see it going anything but Swindon, to be honest with you.
I don't see them slowing down now, do you?
No, I think they've got a nice position and they need to keep it going Swindon to make it into the Final Four and then, in your opinion, win it.
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, you could very well see, Swindon might go, oh well, we could take our foot off the gas a little bit here, but
The wrong
you're not
thing
going
to
to.
do.
You're not going to in this level of professional, semi-professional sport. You just don't do that. So I agree with you. As I think Swindon will come out with a win here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to be the one that sort of we all like it when we have a bit of a debate, but again at the link, I don't think you can back anybody apart from Swindon here, can you? I'm with you both there, guys. I think I won't say comfortable because Romford have showed this past weekend that they can turn up and do some damage, but I think Swindon will come out maybe a couple of goals in Swindon's favour.
Yeah. And then we have the Peterborough Phantoms at home to the Leeds Knights. So obviously this one's pivotal for us.
Mm-hmm.
At Peterborough on the Saturday night.
We've got to have a close eye on this one, aren't we? Throughout both nights, because it means we can have a.
The big thing for me here, and I don't know if you've noticed, but look at the face-off time difference.
Yeah.
We're going to be 2 periods deep before that's even started. If there's any more incentive for like Peterborough or Leeds to really get the foot down and get cracking.
If we're a couple of goals up against Telford, does that add extra pressure to Peterborough as well?
I think both of them will be looking over the shoulder like this could open the door. Like we've got to go get some.
Yeah.
And then in turn that could mean a mistake because they've
God, we've
got our own. Yeah. I think a lot of things fall in line quite nicely for us. It's interesting. I know when we look at the Sunday fixtures, you'll see it kind of goes the other way around and where the late face off. But
anyone care to be topical in this one then? Peterborough.
I think it's probably the hardest fixture to call this weekend.
We're all procrastinating around it, aren't we? But
let's not go with heart here, lads. As well. Let's everything considered. Peterborough or Leeds. What you both saying?
I think it'd be hilarious if Leeds get knocked out and we get in. So if Peterborough won both games and we win both games and Leeds don't make it, I'd find it hilarious personally. But a part of me would love to see that.
I'm still really struggling though, because I just think I think Peterborough are going to blow the roof off their gaff on Saturday. They really are. They know what's at stake as well, like us. I'm going to go on my head though and say on paper Leeds. I think they've got the quality to do it. So
I think it's better if Leeds do it for us. If I'm honest, I think we all knew they would sort of get there in the end. I think if they just win, we're happy, and at least we're chasing Peterborough.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to hope Leeds don't pull out a miracle.
Yeah.
So I think Leeds wins probably the better shout for us.
Yeah. I think this would be a massive sucker punch to Peterborough if Leeds beat them at their gaff, because I think they'll. Of the two games, they'll be thinking, right, let's get 2 points from Leeds and hope things fall in our favour without a little tie-up with Telford, because they won't want their last game at the Castle to rely on them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'd rather have the 8 points on the
Saturday.
And I don't think Leeds would want to have to deal with that Swindon team at the Final Four if they finish second. So I think they want to just get top position, get it over and done with, and be playing either Romford or MK.
Yeah, I agree.
Which, even against MK, they had a decent return. They went to MK and got the win right at the end of the season, didn't they?
I think the last team I want to play in the semi-finals is Swindon personally.
Yeah,
so I think the first spot is so important for Leeds.
Yeah.
With that being said, I think I'm going to back Leeds then for that.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
Fine.
And that leaves us with the final fixture while you're still deciding who's going to bloody win that game.
Have you not?
No, I think Leeds.
Leeds, yeah.
Clean sweep again.
So final fixture on the Saturday, Milton Keynes and Sheffield Steel Dogs again. So that would conclude both their twos. Fixture list, so they get a nice Sunday off watching the rest of the teams play, and they'll know their fate at that point. And
I'm going to chuck my 50p in early and say I think this will be a comfortable win for MK.
Yeah,
I don't want to be disrespectful towards the Steel Dogs,
but
I think this will be a 4-point weekend for MK. Them guaranteed their place, and I think a couple of goals up on Saturday night for MK, and the crowd will be going mad. I think it really falls in their favour actually that they've got their last game's a home game against Sheffield, because to seal it at home with 2,000 people in there, it'd be such an atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that sort of moves us into the Sunday game. Leeds Knights hosting Peterborough Phantoms, the first one, so at the Castle.
Yeah.
As we've obviously just talked about the ifs and buts and variables.
Again, though, I'm going to go for Leeds.
Yeah.
We touched upon this earlier, and last home game at the Castle, they're not going to go down lightly, and they're going to want to put on a show for their fans, knowing that at this point they could be definitely going to the Final Four. So yeah,
Leeds for me as well.
Leeds.
Yeah, I think this Peterborough went to Leeds not too long ago and got a result there, but I don't know if that was them sort of checked out waiting for playoffs. I don't think it was a true representation of the actual game. And do you remember when we played Leeds and they was playing the Fairline a lot that weekend before that was Peterborough? I don't want to be disrespectful to Peterborough because they're a great team and Levine struggled in that game. But I think full force at the Castle, it's very hard for anyone to beat Leeds. We did it last weekend, so there's no reason why Peterborough can't.
No, and I was just going to delve into what if it goes to an overtime thing. Even the odd point picked up by Peterborough there is still a massive stumbling block for us.
Let's break that down then. So you've got 4 points, Peterborough have got 6 at the moment. If they got an overtime point in both the games, they'd be on 8. But because we'd have more wins, if we had more regulation time wins, we'd go through. We just need to win both our games.
Essentially,
that's it. We can't really rely on overtimes because if we end up on the same points and they've got more overtime, they've got less overtime wins than us, they go through. And if we've both got the same overtime wins and it goes to points difference, it just gets messy and horrible. We really need this. I think Leeds at the Castle though, for me.
So then we've got the Romford Raiders against the Swindon Wildcats. I only see this one going one way as well. And my J's at Romford, innit? So.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I don't think this is as straightforward as thingy.
No. I think if Romford can do that, then it really shapes up that group nicely. I'm expecting Swindon to do the double and kind of Milton Keynes do the double.
I think MK doing the double this weekend, so Romford have essentially got to get 4 points against Swindon. I don't see it, unfortunately.
They haven't looked like dropping anything, have they? So.
I think Sunday might just be. It obviously depends on what happens on the Saturday, but I think Sunday, if our predictions are right, it might just be final.
I think that group might just seal itself up quite easily. As bad as that sounds, I don't see anything but a 4-point weekend for Swindon and 4 points for Milton Keynes, which just puts them straight through.
Agreed.
Valiant effort from Romford.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, not the case. Still a great season. But everybody's looking at Group A for when it's going to get real tasty for me. So
definitely.
We'll see. And then that leaves the final fixture of the playoffs. Telford Tigers at home to the Hull Seahawks. And that's going to be, as they say, squeaky bum time for us.
Absolutely.
Like say we're 45 minutes behind Leeds and Peter at that point, so we'll be at home looking in the zone on our game, but we'll know what's happening there, and if that's a tight game all the way through the night as we're facing off, I'm gonna have a really bad stomach.
But I'm going to back the boys. Say Hull go and take the points on this one.
I hope we do. I really do. But as we've mentioned a couple of times, it starts with that mindset of we just can't be negative. We go get that win at home on Saturday. The crowd playing its part, gets the boys rocking, and we need to go to Telford and declare the kitties, as it were.
Well then,
I think Chamber's going to have a rocket up his arse. Definitely. Sorry for that momentary pause, lads. I was just it's so much pressure in it. I think
we're doing this episode now as it's Monday. We've just had the weekend we've just had, and you think we've got to wait another 4 or 5 days to go through the ringer again. I know watching the Leeds game at home on the Saturday and then seeing us live last night, and you just think it's going to be amped up another 50%, and we've got to go through that.
The thing I hate about us is in terms of pressure situations, we don't really handle them that well, and if they don't go our way in the first period or two, I would hate for heads to go, or someone to do something really stupid.
I'd rather just win on the Saturday and at least see the home fans out in the right way. It'd be horrible for it to just be over after Saturday night, defeated in that last home game. It'd just be, at least carries into the last game, lads, for the love of all things. Just take it that Sunday in Telford, and at least we've gone out with a bang at home.
Give them hell,
Well
then, that rounds up another episode, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll see you two again, and we'll hopefully we're all happier. Than we finished last night.
We'll get through the weekend. We'll see what's what.
Some bloody week at work this week. The worst thing is obviously a lot of people that I know at work don't have a clue about ice hockey. So I'm just there, just like sweating anxiety. Like, just thought about ice hockey again on week, and people are just like, "Oh, do you go watch ice hockey?" Like,
I don't watch ice hockey.
I'm having a moment.
I live it.
Yeah, and it's, you know, like you say, it can be difficult, like following a sport like this where nobody else really follows it. You just, like you say, we just love talking about it. You can talk about it every single day. Like if we all worked together, we'd walk straight into the same office and we'd just like, do you know what, I've just thought of something else. And we'd be throwing all sorts about. So I have to bottle it up till sort of like Saturday and before we go again. It's gonna be unbelievable. I'm really excited for it, and it's exactly what you want, and it's what you pay for, and fingers crossed we get over the line.
Let's get going then. So, thank you for tuning in. As always, please like, follow, subscribe. It really helps. We'd love to know your thoughts on our big talking point and any other opinions you've got on some of the topics we've discussed and the opinions we've thrown across there. But really appreciate it. Stay tuned. More to come.
Yeah, see you in the next one.